The concept of the non-believer in Abrahamic religions is more complex than the extremist interpretation suggests. The Arabic term kafir, often translated as unbeliever or infidel, appears 525 times in the Quran with a range of meanings: one who rejects a specific divine gift, one who is ungrateful, one who actively opposes the Muslim community. Classical Islamic jurisprudence developed a rich taxonomy. Dhimmis were people of the book, Jews and Christians, who lived under Muslim rule with legal protections, paying a special tax in exchange for security. Mushrikan were polytheists, treated differently. Murtads were apostates, who faced the most severe penalties. This taxonomy was not static, it evolved over centuries and varied significantly across legal schools and political contexts. The rigid binary of Muslim versus Kafir that characterizes modern jihadist ideology is a simplification that collapses centuries of nuanced jurisprudence into a single homicidal category. The logic of dehumanization follows a consistent psychological pattern across all forms of political violence. The target group must first be stripped of full humanity before large-scale violence against them becomes psychologically possible. In religious extremism, this stripping is accomplished through theological labeling. The non-believer is not merely different but spiritually inferior, an agent of corruption, a threat to the sacred community. The Quran's warnings about taking unbelievers as close friends, meant in the 7th century as advice about political alliances, are reinterpreted in extremist literature as general prohibitions on any positive relationship with non-Muslims. The psychological research on this process, drawing on the work of Philip Zimbardo, Stanley Milgram, and James Waller, shows that ordinary people can be led to commit atrocities against outgroups when they have been properly dehumanized, particularly when the violence is commanded by legitimate authority and defined as service to the group's survival. The treatment of non-believers within ISIS-controlled territory provides the most detailed recent case study of dehumanization in practice. The Yazidis of northern Iraq, a small religious minority with ancient roots in the region, were classified by ISIS as pagans, beyond even the legal protections afforded to dhimmis, and therefore subject to enslavement or death. In August 2014, ISIS forces killed thousands of Yazidi men and enslaved thousands of Yazidi women, systematically organizing the slave trade through theological justifications published in their own magazine, Daybig. The theological argument, that enslaving polytheists was not merely permitted but required, was not improvised. It was carefully constructed from selective readings of Islamic jurisprudence, deliberately misrepresenting the tradition to sanction atrocity. The response from mainstream Muslim scholars was unequivocal. Over 120 scholars signed an open letter to al-Baghdadi in 2014 refuting each of ISIS's theological claims point by point. The lesson of the dehumanization of non-believers is that theological innovation matters, but so does its refutation. The mainstream Muslim scholarly refutation of ISIS's theology was substantively correct. It was also largely irrelevant to ISIS's actual recruitment, which operated through social networks, grievance mobilization, and the appeal of belonging. The people who joined ISIS were not primarily convinced by the theology, they were convinced by the community, the identity, the adventure, and the feeling of acting against injustice. The theology provided post hoc justification, not prior motivation. This has a practical implication. Counter-narratives that focus exclusively on theological refutation miss most of the audience they need to reach. Effective counter-extremism requires addressing the social and psychological needs that extremist groups fulfill, the need for belonging, identity, purpose, and significance, and providing alternative means of meeting those needs within the mainstream community. Thank you for watching The Shadow of Extremism. Sources and references are on screen. Subscribe to follow the full series.